This country been run by a brother goats, the greediest of all time. They have all a self and none of the mentality. The chorus is bunch of pigs and goats running this desk day. And the latest deception and betrayal is really cause for alarm. They're the greediest of all time. It is plain to see the true gang and give a damn about you and me. Even big supporters crying foul and shame at all these comrades dirtying the Labour Party name. Don't business about that as long as they pocket fat. Too bad who don't agree. The goat them say it's all about me. That's the chorus. Who is the nanny gate liar? Who don't spin doctor? Parent men me. Whose sole agenda is to make themselves richer and the poor harder. They say I know that I greedy, but I beg you don't watch me stop being hateful. Instead just be grateful. All the good them say it's all about me. That's the slogan. The big salary increase is just the latest injustice to be imposed on the people by these blundering misfits. They're selfish and greedy with no love for the needy. Cabalicious and run race, make the thing ain't got no taste. Disrespectful and pompous, arrogant and self-righteous. These goats too brave and bold, ain't got no heart, no soul. They fed on their own nest, we not a care for the rest. They say it's all about me. That's the goat, them mantra. Who want the whole hog treating poor people like dog men? Who keep flying high and start living our sons here to die? Men. Who take the pepper, the pop and kill off the peace? Men. Enough talking about lift and elevate, just words and promises but no relief. Who lacking empathy, compassion, humility, me. Who think that shame, lame, rename is a sustainable strategy? Here they got them men. But woe be unto these ghosts and vampires. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 10 says, whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. Firstly, a grievous evil under the sun. Wealth according to the harm of its owners, lost to misfortune, so that their children have nothing to inherit. So let them carry on, God don't like ugly. Who playing, who fooling, who since June 2022, men. Who do the big bet and switch, divide the poor and the rich, men. Who raking in bigly while so many going hungry, men. Who are disgrace of behind blood sucking parasite, a bunch of termites. It brought them, men.
We love to serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness, we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action Movement is here and here to stay.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. If you have been following this program for the last year plus, you would know that this is a program organized by the People's Action Movement, a party who is now in the middle of celebrating its 60th anniversary. In fact, we celebrated on the 15th of January this very month our 60th or diamond anniversary. So we're happy that you can join us. And if you have been following this program, and indeed if you have followed us for the last episode, episode 2 for season 2, episode 1 rather for season 2, you would remember that that discussion then centered around the coming into being of our party, the 60th anniversary. At that time, we had a conversation with the former political leaders, and we got a lot of history, a lot of the history of the party, a lot of the challenges of those early days in the formation of the party. This evening, however, we are going to come forward a little bit, and we are going to talk about what the future looks like for the People's Action Movement. Obviously, the party is in opposition now, and so the whole idea is to find itself in government at the call of the next election, which is due, well, constitutionally by 2027. So we have brought to the studio this evening our current political leader, Natasha Gray-Brooks, Mrs. Natasha Gray-Brooks, and the current chairman of the party, Mr. Sheldon Pemberton. And together, they would give us a glimpse into what they want to see, how they want to see the future chart of the party of PAM look like in the next, say, maybe 5-10 years. So the conversation this evening is really about the future of the People's Action Movement. So I want to welcome back political leader Mrs. Gray-Brooks and of course Mr. Pemberton, because they've both been here before, although talking about different subject matters. And so I want to, in welcoming Mrs. Gray-Brooks, just allow her a few opening sentences, and then I'll do the same for the chairman, and then we'll deep dive into the conversation at hand. So welcome again, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, Laverne, and good night to all those who are viewing via our social media platforms. And today is the 30th of January. I have not seen or spoken to some of you, and so I can still say Happy New Year. It is a pleasure being here, as usual. It gives me the opportunity to dialogue and to speak on pertinent issues within the Federation. But as the PRO would have indicated, PAM is now celebrating 60 years. 60 years of rich history. 60 years showing our commitment. 60 years showing that we continue to put people first, and our resilience while doing so, whether in opposition or in government. And so it is my pleasure to be here to speak about what I think that we can do, not just for the party, but for the country within the short term and long term, because PAM is a party that continues to ensure that we build up our people and we ensure that persons within our country are looked after in every facet of life.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to say a pleasant good evening to our listening audience, both at home and abroad. And just as the political leaders indicated, I would like to wish you all a Happy New Year as well. With respect to the People's Action Movement, a party with a tremendous amount of history, I really think that the future is very, very bright. However, we have to do a stock check and see where we are and where we need to go. And so I'm very excited about the opportunity of leading with our political leader the future of the People's Action Movement as it prepares itself for government. The world is changing, and I think the People's Action Movement is committed to changing with it. And in changing it with it, we would have to make certain adjustment, concessions, and as these develop over time, I think we will evolve as a new party, a party with the fundamental basis of putting people first as we move forward in a new era in making sure that the needs and concerns of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are addressed going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm sure both of you followed the conversation with the former political leaders on the first edition of Perspectives earlier this year. And one of the things that stood out in that conversation, other than the trials and the tribulations, if you will, that the party experienced in those early days, was the fact that there were three things that really kept the party going. And these were the support that they got from women, the support that they got, to use Sir Kennedy's word, the army of young people who followed them, and volunteerism. So we are now looking at 60 years past those early days. How critical are these three things right now to take the party forward, to chart its course for the next 10 years? Volunteerism, the young people, and women.
Now, Laverne, I think even though we are 60 years on, those things still remain the key focus for our party. And you've heard it from our former political leaders that the women have always been the backbone of the party. They are organizers, they are cooks, they demonstrate, they even mix mortar in relation to our campaign headquarters, or party headquarters, which we are so very proud of. Now, back when, 60 years ago, most of the forefathers were young men, young, vibrant men who dared to challenge the Labour Party, who dared to stand up to some of the hardships that our people were facing and agitate on behalf of our people. And look at what they have produced. Look at what they have produced. If you look at our history from 1980 to 1995, some of those things that have developed our country, we are still reaping the benefits of them. And so, although some persons may have said they were young, inexperienced, they proved to the world that together, collectively, they were able to lift up St. Kitts and Nevis and its people. Now, volunteerism, that is something that we are very proud of. So many persons have volunteered their services in different spheres, and we cannot thank them enough, because if it wasn't for those volunteers on election day, we would not have the necessary agents. When it comes to organizing training, we would not have that training. And party events, people putting up stages and speakers for political meetings, that is something that we depend on heavily, and we will continue to uplift our volunteers and supporters, because they have made us who we are.
Mr. Chairman, you wanted to add anything to that? Because that was pretty concise.
I think she did. I think she did an amazing job in covering it. I would just add that, you know, the young generation is definitely critical. Has been and continues to be and will continue to be. So the Gen Z and the Gen Y generation is critical to the movement of this party and advancing the cause. So they are the future leaders of this country. And I guess it's a very emotional moment for me, because I remember back in 1985, I was very active involved in the People's Action Movement. At that time, I eventually became the leader of the president of the Young PAMites. And I remember how there was a synergy that really prepared the party and propelled it to probably one of its largest victories in 1989. And so we do have template for success. We do have the template that it works, and I'm looking forward to execute it in a similar manner.
Well, thank you. And I would use those opening statements and that response as the backdrop to this conversation. So now the party has come full circle after 60 years. We find ourselves in opposition again. Obviously, we need to put in the work to get on Church Street. We're on Church Street now, but we need to go further down the road. You know, the whole idea is to move a little more, a little inch of our way down, you know, further down to that pink building. So it needs planning, it needs work. We all know, you know, we have lived long enough to see and understand that it is difficult to unseat a Labour government for all sorts of reasons. For all sorts of reasons. Not necessarily because of their performance, but I guess the audience would know what we're talking about. So we're the political leader, you are 6 months now into your role as you know, leading the party. And so I just want you to tell us very broadly, because we also have to be mindful that sometimes when you share information, people are willing to steal it and pass it off as their own. And we have always been a party of innovative thoughts and development. So we still have to be mindful how much we share. But I want you to tell us, you've had 6 months to look over the party and to dial back and hear all of the history. How do you plan to move the party forward in, say, the next 2-3 years?
Now, being in opposition is a difficult task, but looking back at what Sir Ken did, looking back at what Lindsey Grant, Dr. Richards, and even our deceased first leader, Dr. William Billy Herbert, resilience, strength, and ensuring that we focus on the people. And so, even though I'm just the political leader for 6 months, I've seen some of the workings in and out of office. In fact, most of my adult life was in opposition. We have to redefine the party's core values. Some persons may not understand what we stand for, and so it is our job to educate them. And so PAM is going to be saturating itself throughout all the constituencies in different forms, whether it is political meetings, whether it is on the media, door to door, listening tours, because people must understand what we stand for and what we have produced in this country. You spoke about the women and the youths. Now we have 10 arms of the party, 8 constituencies, the women's arm and the youth arm. These arms, we are going to ensure that they are revitalized, re-energized, organized, and committed to the fight, because we are on a rescue mission. We are about to ensure that we touch every man, woman, and child in this nation, because our nation needs rescuing. We have to do it throughout the constituencies. We have to use our women to do it, and we also have to use our youth. Now, when you look at some of the issues facing our country, the economy, right now it's stagnant. 2.5 years and we are still wondering what is happening. Our health issues, employment, construction, housing, we need to ensure that we put plans in place to make sure our economy is revitalized, make sure that people enjoy a good standard of living and a good quality of life. So we need to ensure that we craft compelling policy platforms so that our people can buy into what we want to put there for them and to ensure that they are rescued. Now, a number of projects have been bandied about, but are we really feeling the effects? Are these social safety networks, are there enough social safety networks in place? Are there enough projects that empower our people to be entrepreneurs, to be businessmen? Is there enough going on in our federation to diversify the economy as it relates to agriculture, technology? We need to ensure that we put things in place, not just from a manifesto perspective, but once we continue to dialogue with persons, we hear their concerns, we see their needs, we will be able to craft it based on what they have said to us. And so we are not just focusing on, the next year or two. We are looking at sustaining our country, our people, our economy on a long-term basis. And these are what we are going to be focused on. Mainly, Mr. Chairman, we have about 6 more months of our term, but it is a continuous work that we have to carry out.
Absolutely.
Regardless if it is me, regardless if it is you, because 60 years is something that we have to show the people that we can have 60 by 60. Soon we'll be celebrating our 75th and then our 100th, and then they will say, but this is not a fly-by-night party. This is a party that understands people, understands governance, understands ensuring how our economy should be, and making sure that life is better for all.
Mm-hmm. Well said, political leader. Now, Mr. Chairman, I am hearing in the political leader's presentation the need for engagement, because we can't think as a political party that we know what people want, because we'll be fooling ourselves.
Very much so.
And when we look at the current situation, clearly there needs to be a thorough assessment of what is working, what could be done better. That is what an opposition party ought to do. So from where you sit, how well are we doing at these things?
Well, I think
as we plan for the future.
As we plan for the future, it is a steep learning curve, as we are a new executive. However, because of the legacy that was built, there's a template, there's a blueprint for success, there's a blueprint for community engagement. And with our executive, under the leadership of our political leader, Shani, our intentions is to build out through the other constituencies, because this vision needs to come to life by the active engagement and involvement of people within the constituency level. There must be a hand-in-hand approach to having a vision and having the foundation with people engaged, people willing to move forward, trying to find out, as you indicated, trying to find out what are people saying. And that's one of the reasons over the last couple of months we had the listening tours. And that was involved trying to find out what are people saying, what are they feeling. And the only how we can do that is that we have to become more engaged. We have to go and meet people where they are. Politics is also not about an election event. It's about engaging people and engaging our citizens every single day, trying to find out what are their pains, what are their dreams, what are their aspirations. And in doing so, as a political party, we become more in tune with what they desire, so that when we decide to formulate, or we start to strategically formulate our policies will dovetail with their wants and their desires. But it has to happen at a grassroots level. And so I will be making an appeal that we will be engaging young, old, not so young. We'll be engaging people of all stripes, all colors, because we cannot do this alone. We have to move forward in this country. We cannot move forward with half of the population thinking that this is the only way. And we need to have a more engaging process of developing a future for St. Kitts and Nevis.
You made a point there that I have to go back to, and it has been said in many ways around here before, because we keep hearing about this sustainable island state, and as Mr. Grant said on a program recently, he's still trying to find out what this looks like. But surely a sustained island state can't involve just 50% of the population. And so the fact that you said that seems to me that the party has planned to include everybody. And I am happy and impressed that you made the point that the party, young people say, don't watch in the face. The party not watching any face. Because you just said, to use your words, we're not looking at stripes and colors and all of that. And clearly, if a political party can provide that assurance to the electorate, and not only that, but demonstrate it when they get into government, I think this is exactly what our country is crying out for. Because it is all well and good when the campaign season, and people think that, I guess, politics is almost a full-time job, because you're always in campaign mode, even when you're in government.
Yes.
And so it's all well and good to make these promises. But when you reach into office, there's no demonstration that you were serious, because they're just pie in the sky kind of promises and nothing happens. So I hope that as a political party in opposition and preparing for governance, these are the very things that we're taking into consideration for when that day comes. We have to find a way to include everybody, every child, every woman, every race, every person from every political party. Because people, this is the land of our birth.
Yes.
And surely, you know, there's a calypso that said that if honey is in the rocks, it's for everybody. You know, everybody wants their share. And so I'm happy that that is the direction in which the party is going while it is preparing for governance. But I was listening to the political leader to your Convention 58 remarks, and two things stood out for me as I listened. You made a lot of reference to single mothers and young people, and you sort of itemize some of the ways that in your political leadership you would make sure that these people, that these particular demographics are looked after. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you began to shape in your mind some of the ways that this could happen. So I'd like you to just share with us some of the ways in your mind that as a government, mm-hmm. We are preparing to assist single mothers and young people.
Now, I myself was a single mother, and I understand some of the challenges and hurdles that were faced by our women, and they still face them today. One of the key things for me is education. Sometimes, you know, some persons get pregnant at a young age and they're unable to live the life or the quality of life that they want to because of an early pregnancy. That in and of itself can contribute to poverty. Right. And so we have to find avenues where young women, especially the single mothers, have a support system. Yes, it's all well and good where family members can come and assist when time is necessary, but sometimes women can't go to certain jobs because of the fact that they have no one to care for their children. They would aspire to be a certain particular individual in the community, but again, because of their child, they're unable to do extra classes. And so you find that they are denied opportunities as a result of not an error, because you can't call a child an error. They are denied opportunities as a result of a misstep. And so they now are suffering as a result, and the children are suffering. They are unable to meet some of the needs of their family, and we need to put a support system in place to help our single mothers. Sometimes it can also include the children joining in, whether it is a cooking class, whether it is something to do with needlework, something, and even to learn a skill whereby they can fix their own leaking pipe, the leaking faucets. They can maybe one or two tiles, and that will give them that entrepreneurial spirit, wanting to be able to do more for their family by not only going to work for somebody, but working for themselves and creating job opportunities for people. Now, we oftentimes say that the youth are our future, but sometimes to me it seems like it's just on paper. Young people feel, many of them, that, you know, they are just given an opportunity just because they are considered young, but they get talked down on. They also, you know, are not allowed to be able to advance their ideas in different spheres because maybe somebody might not look at it too well because it's coming from a younger person. But someone who's not so young might get more respect. So it's all well and good to say, you know, well, we have somebody under 30 being a director, but then really and truly it's somebody maybe in their 50s who's making the decisions or who's getting the recognition. So we need to be able to have an assessment of our youth, be able to praise them and showcase them.
Give them a seat at the table.
Yes, and not just for saying, okay, we have 10 young persons here. We must be able to promote our youth, give them the opportunities. Instead of a minister flying on a plane, send a young person. Because you have given them this position, let them feel recognized on the world stage. So that is something that we are very, very sensitive about, that young persons, even though sometimes they do get some opportunities, they don't feel that their worth is being recognized, and we need to provide an opportunity and an avenue for them so that they don't feel they don't want to contribute. And that is why sometimes we end up having persons getting in problems, because they feel that they are ignored or thrown to the bottom of the pile, and we need to build our youth. Just a segue on that, I know that there are a number of rehabilitation initiatives when young persons get into trouble, but sometimes you hear the cries, because I was incarcerated. I learned all these things whilst I was in prison. I got 20 subjects, but no one is hiring me. Why do you let persons go through all those things, but yet they cannot fit back into society? So we really need to go on a drive to appreciate, show that we have appreciation for our youth and that they are valued.
Well, if the young people are listening to you tonight, Madam Political Leader, they're going to be expecting, of course they'll vote for you. Of course, it goes without saying, because you're exciting them now. But again, it's all about you delivering on your promise to assist.
And if I may piggyback on what our political leaders indicated about the disparity in income. You know, I was recently reading a report about the challenges in the CARICOM with respect to incomes. A lot of our young people, and I'm saying young, those are the same people you refer to under 30, their incomes are relatively low, and they represent a very large percentage of our population. And so we have to do a better job of figuring out how do we increase the incomes of people between 20 and 30. Because what is happening is that people who are in their 50s or 60s are the ones who are making the bulk of the incomes. And if that is the case within Caribbean countries, and St. Kitts in particular, we would have a challenge of having a high, the quality of life, the livelihoods of persons who are between the ages of 20 and let's say now say 35. If they are the middle tier or the lowest end of the income bracket, then we will see why that cost of living is so high in this country. We see the reason why young people are crying out, because it's almost as though they're saying, I can't wait till I get to 45. Why do they have to wait to 45 to start experiencing a quality of life? And so as a party, I think we are committed to challenging ourselves so that we can help to improve the quality of life of young people between that age of 20 and 30. And how do we do that? We can only do that through training, and education. And training in areas with respect to the new trend in technologies. Because that is where we're actually focusing. That's where we're heading. You know, we have the robotic society. It is one of the top in the Caribbean, if not on this side of the world. And if we can use that as a template to drive innovation and technology, I think the future for St. Kitts and Nevis is extremely bright.
Yes. And just to say, you spoke about the young persons not being compensated or having equitable compensation, not because they're not trained, but because they are young or inexperienced. Maybe that explains why a lot of persons get mortgages over the age of 40. And so that is something that we need to try to fix, to enable our youth to feel that they are part of this society in every area, so that they don't end up living with their parents until they're 40, because that is when they could actually start thinking about a mortgage. We have to do something to help our youth.
Well, you know, how many times are we going to say the template is there already? Because the template was set by PAM during it, you know, its tenure in office in the 80s into the 90s. And as the chairman was talking, I heard somebody made a comment recently that the middle class in St. Kitts is disappearing. As a matter of fact, it is disappearing because it is being swallowed up in a downward trajectory as the I guess that first year, what you call it, as the working class.
Yes.
The working class. And it must be something that concerns the People's Action Movement, given that in the heyday of its office in between 1980 and 1995, there was a thriving middle class in St. Kitts and Nevis.
So I was told.
And well, I witnessed it. I witnessed it. And so now, I mean, now to see the reverse, that reverse trend, it must be troubling. So living up to the expectation, and I suppose this putting people first. Somebody shared with me a few days ago a photo of a politician in a nearby island, well, I think that island is having election pretty shortly.
I think I saw
I wasn't going to call it the island's name. And interestingly, on the top of the poster was putting people first, perhaps as a theme. But we did that as our theme since in the 60s, and we brought that to life.
Yes.
You know, we didn't just say it, we brought it to life. There was a thriving middle class in St. Kitts. There was businesses were booming, small business, medium-sized business. There was a small business association. We've said that in this very room before. So if these are the foundational things that made PAM what PAM was in those days, clearly we have to go back to those days. How are we going to get there, Mr. Chairman? What are we going to do to get there?
It's never an easy task, but it has to start from as young as in the schools. We have to find a way of restructuring our school system with respect to our STEM strategy, of making sure that we're educating our people today for today's trends that are going to continue tomorrow.
Yes.
We're too far, we're too involved in the economy of the past. I have nothing against doctors and lawyers, but we seem to be a country that focuses on putting doctors and lawyers, and unfortunately, the world is trending in the technology area. It's one of my passions, I think the only way we can actually do that, young people, their minds, they're like sponges. When we start speaking to young people about the opportunities, we cannot just talk to them about opportunities. We have to foster the environment for them to be able to flourish. And fostering that environment may mean starting a workshop on open-end technology. We can have young people, even in sports. As much as we see people now are doing a lot better in sports, maybe we need to train people in sports to think more about sports as a career and not talking about it as physical education, but see it as an opportunity for us to advance in different areas of our society. And so we need to have a much broader approach, but it still has to be very tailored and focused on human development.
I certainly agree. You know, like you said, the solutions of the past decade or maybe the past century really can't take us much farther now into this new era. So there are clearly a lot of gaps that this party is going to have to fill. I was trying to avoid going there, But clearly, the CBI, by the time we get into government in 2027, CBI might be behind us. It means then that even as a political party in opposition, we have to begin to think about what is going to fill that gap. So have we answered that question yet? What is going to fill that gap?
Now, Sheldon spoke about innovation and technology. That is something that we have to do a little bit more research on so that we can find the different avenues so persons can pick up creative ways to be able to sustain our economy. Now, as I spoke about, two things we relied on heavily: tourism, CBI. We saw the problems. When COVID struck, we saw the problems with tourism. When bad decisions are made, we see the problems with CBI. Now, are we investing enough in our people in relation to agriculture? How many exports are we doing as a country rather than imports? We need to have an assessment on that and be able to find creative ways for our farmers, our fisher folk. Because when I saw, maybe 2-3 years ago, there was a backyard farmer who was producing grapes.
He's from Sandy Point.
He's from Sandy Point. How many other persons know what to do in relation to that? Can we serve our supermarkets in relation to grapes? We have to find those ways. We have our friends from Taiwan. They can assist us in relation to some of the techniques that they have. Are we relying on them for that? So we have to look at our agriculture, technology, our creative economy. Now, it's all well and good to have this ministry, but are we producing what we ought to produce in relation to the creatives? Is our music going where it ought to go? Now, you were present at the gala, Sheldon, you were. And, I mean, it's a joke, but you heard our comedian. He spoke about Bob Marley and his music. He has died, and his music lives on and still making money. Do we have that avenue for our youths? And I praise those who are ensuring that their talent is being displayed, but we need to do more. We need to do more so that when the cruise ships don't come today, we have a backup plan. When the CBI revenue is not coming in, we can speak of our grapes growing down in Sandy Point and maybe up in McKnight somewhere, so that we can see it's not just a limited amount of persons who are trying to grow and expand their crop. We are going to have to educate our people more, work with our farmers, work with our creatives, work with the Gen Zs and all the different Zs and X and Ys, because they think outside the box. I mean, I picked up my daughter from school today and I was told she was doing coding. I don't even know. She's going to have to teach me coding. So we really need to look a little differently, because the things of the past, yes, they can work, but for how long?
Yes.
Are they sustainable? I think not. This is time for us to step out the box. And the People's Action Movement will be outlining a number of our plans bit by bit, and then we're going to unveil, because we must let the people know that we are not just a party of 60 years back. We are a party that adjusts with the times. We are a living instrument, so to speak. We are engaging and we are listening to the needs of the people. And once we recognize that these are needs and concerns that must be addressed, St. Kitts and Nevis will move forward. We will move forward, and we will not be standing here, or sitting rather, hearing persons say that this is the year for us to start. Well, we could have been starting, we could have been continuing, you know, and sometimes that is one of the downfalls of administrations, because they think that government is not continuous. They try to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes the wheel missing a few nuts and bolts.
Mr. Chairman, you look like you were edging to
Edge.
to add something something to that.
No, I only would say that, the political issue is very correct. I think the challenge the government faces is that there are a lot of story, there are a lot of great ideas, but unfortunately, they're missing the connections to these ideas. And so I think when we're ready to release some of our strategies, you will see the steps strategic steps to sustainability. Sustainability for some people is just a word. For us, it's a philosophy. It's a true belief. We have done it. We progressed the country from statehood to independence. It was that progression was not very easy. If you speak to a lot of people who were in the public service at that time, that indicated that monies were not coming very, very often. It was a struggle. And with the innovation of Sir Kennedy and the late Dr. William Valentine Herbert, they had a vision about how they were going to take the country forward in the 80s. And today, we are now in that same position where we now have an opportunity of how do we now take St. Kitts and Nevis from where we're at today to where we would like them to be in the next 10 to 15 years. And it has to start by building blocks. We must see how you're going to get to sustainability. It cannot be a sustainable island state, and we talk about solar technology. But what are we actually doing to advance our infrastructure? We're not hearing the plans. We're hearing a lot of talk. And so I'm very excited that in the coming months, as we move forward to Church Street to become the government,
Closer to
Church Street, we will unroll a little bit more of our plans about how we will execute our sustainable development plan.
Thank you. You don't seem to want to, I guess, say a lot on some of these matters, but clearly there are some gaps that we're seeing currently, and I don't know if you have itemized what these gaps are. We have been, as you just said, we have been doing the pop-up meetings. We've also been doing the listening tours. And from that, we've been able to garner a wealth of information. One gentleman at one of the listening tours said that he had to pay the full price for some cancer drug that before Unity, the Limited office, was not the case. He was actually getting that drug subsidized. And so there is this whole concern about the cost of healthcare. Yes. And that cannot escape us even in opposition. We are hearing about a smart hospital, but what does a smart hospital look to the average person? When we use these terminologies, it would be good if they're broken down into granular bits so people understand a smart hospital will deliver A, B, C, D. It would require the citizens to do X, Y, Z. But we're just hearing these loose terms. But they're not being broken down in a level that the average Joe Brown in Middle Island understands what they mean. So as it relates to health care, what do you see from your vantage point as the current challenge and the most opportune way to correct those challenges if PAM were to become the next government in 2027, as we're preparing to govern?
Now, as it relates to our present healthcare institution, we have heard the concerns as it relates to micromanaging, not enough staff, not enough supplies. I think the problem right now is the investment in human capital. There has been no serious effort to ensure that we don't have square pegs in round holes, that the right person gets the right job, so that when it comes to execution, we know how to manage, We know how to deal with operational issues, staffing, making sure that supplies are there, making sure that we have a generator to back up in case electricity is out, because you can't have a critical operation or any procedure being carried out at our main hospital. And if we were to lose electricity supply, God knows what can happen. So there is something that is missing. The fact that we need to ensure that it's not my friend's hospital. It's not my supporter's hospital. This is a hospital that functions for our residents and our citizens. Because if, for instance, someone feels a chest pain today, they can't fly out to America to get it resolved in 20 minutes. They have to go to JNF. You have to make what you have work until something else is done. Because what I fear will happen is that the same level of negligence, mismanagement, will move over to the smart hospital. So all the smart things would seem not so smart. And then we would have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions, and our healthcare system is no better. So you would have thought that having a doctor as a Minister of Health, that would have been a #1 priority. It's not good enough to clear a piece of land, which I'm not sure who owns it, twice. Let the people see that you are serious, and not serious from laying a foundation, serious from addressing the concerns that face the people at JNF. We have to do that. And I see my friend wants to say something,
No,
and I'm hoping he didn't have a bad experience. I'm hoping he didn't have a bad experience, because we can't lose you.
No.
But I hear you're a political leader, and I'm in total agreement. But here's the kicker. And I asked this question of Dr. Richards when he was on this show a few months ago. Does the government need to divest itself from certain services? Is that the plan of the People's Action Movement? And if it is, what are some of the, it might be off the top of your head now, but what are some of the services that we probably need to get out of as a government, so that we can free up maybe some resources and give it to people who are more competent? The funny thing is that the private sector doesn't run it. Business in the private sector don't run at a loss. But government doesn't mind running some of its departments at a loss. But that can't make any sense, because you're still accountable to the people.
Yes,
you may not have shareholders like a TDC or Hartsford's, but the electorate are your shareholders.
Yes. And
so is it time for the government to divest itself of some of these services, critical services as they may be? And if that is the thinking, off the top of your head, maybe, Mr. Chairman, can you share what are some of these things that you would like to see government divest itself of, so that it may be more, efficient, or we could realize some cost savings from so doing? Mr. Chairman.
I know you have plenty.
It is really interesting. I think it's really important for us to do the research to see if it is possible. There are.
Let me help you.
No, there are blueprints out there that actually have done. So, for example, you don't have to go too far. I mean, for those who might not be as young, our telephone system was in the government, and under Sir Kennedy Simmons, it became Scantel, and then it became Cable and Wireless. I think that we can look at the possibility of having our healthcare system one which is a dual function, where administratively we may have the government involved, and technically we may have the private sector involved. So a two-pronged approach to our healthcare system, so that we will have, for example, we'll have a CEO who will manage the actual operations, and the administrative role will be played by the government. The government will also do some investments, but we're always doing investments, but now it'd be an investment into a company, almost like a statutory body, that has, as you said, no more square pegs and round holes.
Yes.
So we have a team, a professional healthcare team that understands how to deliver quality healthcare service to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I think that is something I've thought about.
But that's one area. That's health.
I smile just because of the continuance of that is how we can do health tourism. Because when you have businesses now we can go from not only the healthcare of our people, now we could have people coming in to St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes.
It's done in Barbados on a different scale. So there are opportunities and strategies and innovative ideas that we can employ and experiment with in order to put our healthcare system in line with our cable system. So can you imagine that the telecommunication system is better than healthcare? And the time has come for our healthcare system to become one of the best in the Eastern Caribbean.
I'm glad that you spoke about health, because with the deterioration in some other aspects of life, it can make our health system so bad, vulnerable. People are stressed, because in terms of health, it comes an expense to persons. Now, you spoke about the airport, Laverne. That is something that we really may need to look at. Again, the research has to be carried out to see how feasible it is, in what areas we can say, well, okay, private sector, we're going to get a company to deal with this aspect, and government will deal with this aspect. Our water. Now, in 2025, we are supposed to have a reliable source of water. Not just to the point that it's flowing from our pipe, but what we're getting is something that we can actually drink.
Quality.
Now, many persons have spoken about the water supply. It goes almost on a daily basis in some instances. Are our government departments, are they doing enough? Do they have the relevant technical expertise to ensure that the infrastructure that we have can actually sustain our society? We need to look into that. Now, there are a number of other things. Although SCELEC is a company, we also know that they are a statutory body. And so, are they functioning the way in which
they would rather you say that they're corporatized, whatever that means?
they're corporatized.
It means that the government hand is still in there somewhere.
I mean, I think I heard something in Parliament today where they were speaking about a guarantee. They want to be able to do certain things in relation to how your electricity is used. But again, is that enough if SCELEC can now borrow their own money? Or do you want an opportunity for us to get the best electricity supply? Go back to the healthcare again. What if we have a problem with our electricity supplies and we don't have the necessary expertise? So I think it's time for us to really assess certain areas as it relates to infrastructure, our health. I mean, health is something that really has to be the top of our priority, because we have been successive administrations. We have not gotten it as right as we ought to. And I think the time is right for us, the People's Action Movement, to be able to draw out a roadmap, not just in relation to professionals in the area, but we need the different persons as it relates to the operations of our institutions, and not just the hospital, the clinics. You have too many buildings within the government system that have mold problems. Are we having the relevant expertise as it relates to maintenance? I mean, yes, somebody say, okay, I can clean this window, I can spray this, but is it enough? Why do we have a mold issue in so many government operated buildings? So I think we really have to look at that, and we may need to have some discussions with persons who have the expertise and know-how, because we don't have all the ideas. We always want to hear from people in different areas.
So when we look at gaps in general, though, gaps that we're looking from the lens of an opposition party, in terms of, hearing what the people are saying and people's disappointment, if you will, at some point in time, in what they're getting versus what they were promised. How are we prepared to fill those gaps? Mr. Chairman, if you want to jump on.
I was planning.
No, go ahead.
Now, I've heard it before. I've heard that the Labour Party is very good at campaigning. But when it comes to governance, that seems to be an issue. And in such a short space of time, you have heard persons speaking about different issues in relation to their spending power, in relation to the living conditions, not being able to have that security of housing. You're now seeing a number of things were promised, and now there is this race to finish houses within a particular time because the deadline has already passed. Are they going to get quality homes based on the rush to finish? And the People's Action Movement is not just about wanting to get into government. Yes, that is the ultimate goal of any political party, but you must also be there to meet your people in time of need. And right now, all we can do at this point is agitate on behalf of the people. But when we continue to dialogue with people in different areas, we will get the necessary advice and expertise to be able to show how we can help persons get around this maze. Because right now we're in a maze. We are going from one area to the next, and it seems like every time you think that something good is going to happen, something else happens. So it is about time that we bring others into the discussion. Bring others into the discussion, because we do not want, when we get into government in 2027, we end up like the Labour administration. We want to show that we are a progressive party, we are about thinking about people, and we will be able to rely on what our forefathers have done for this country. And the good thing is we have some of them around today, especially Dr. Sir Ken, our own living national hero. We have his expertise that we can rely on. He has a wealth of knowledge. I wish when I reach that age, God spare my life, all my faculties are intact so that I can pass on to generations. And that is one of the problems, that sometimes it's all about me. What I can say or what I can do or but there's no inclusivity. And we are not about that. We rely on the experiences of others, because it's not about what one person can do.
So surely the housing problem is a vexing situation. I think that people's hopes have been raised, and then in the same speed that their hopes are raised, their hopes were fallen. It may not have been a bad idea to think about outsourcing the provision of housing on that level.
Yeah.
But clearly something is not adding up. Again, if we are talking about government getting out, easing out of some of these services and the provision of things like housing and all of that, as important as housing is, what is the political action movement's answer to solving the housing problem? As we sit right now, with 2 years to go before we get in government. Mr. Chairman, you want to give that a shot? I'm not, what you said doesn't have to be gospel. but no, I mean, there could be an election tomorrow. We have to tell the people if we're ready. I mean, so, we are seeing the failing, the catastrophic failing of that sector. Housing is one of Maslow's theory of needs. I mean, you have to have a house. You can't live on the street. And so, whereas in 2025, there ought to have been 1,800 homes that have been built. There are perhaps, let's say 18. Let's give them 18. It may not be 18. It is a serious failure on the government's part. It is one that really ought to get them out of office. So we are, as the alternate government, how are we thinking about solving that kind of problem, Mr. Chairman?
Solving that problem is no easy feat, but I think the government might have made a mistake in over-promising and
so that is gone. That is gone. We can't. We're not talking for them now. We're not their publicists. We're not their publicists. But what we want to tell people now is that if we get into government tomorrow, this is what we can. This is some of the possibilities that we can do to solve that problem. It is a vexing problem.
So the approach has to be definitely strategic about servicing people at certain criteria, income criteria, and so. Even based on the NHC Act, which is about indigenous persons with low incomes, it is very important that we make sure that we have a strategic plan of delivering housing to people who unfortunately incomes are low and cannot afford housing. That is one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is we have to make capital available for the middle income. And one of the things I've said is that we have to figure out how are we going to balance the needs. Because what has been happening over the years is that NHC has been consistently been in the hole for many, many, many years. A lot of people are not aware. I think the guaranteed debt to St. Kitts and Nevis is close to almost $500 million. That is not sustainable if we're talking about sustainable island government. But at the same time, because it's been used as a political football, we have to seriously look and say, what is the real cost of building a home in St. Kitts? How are we going to build this home? And we must, in the end, have a tiered system where we are going to help people who cannot afford housing, and those who can afford housing, there has to be an offset. And so if we have that offset in terms of the middle income and the higher incomes housing development strategy and housing development plan, that plan has to be one that is all encompassing. What we have is we have too many insular or too many small initiatives that are not speaking or not connecting with each other. And so we have a great housing sector. We have the NHC. And somewhere in between, right now, the government is coming up with some plan that they're saying, I think what they call it is a livable, what was the terminology? Livable wage?
Livable wage.
A livable wage. If you have a livable wage, you can get a certain house. And so we have to have a strategic plan that is much more focusing on delivering for the people who need it the most. I know you keep on saying, but to divulge some of our plans is kind of early now, but I can tell our people that we will have a plan for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis with respect to our low income housing development plan. And it will be one that you will be proud of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Time will decide. Time will decide how some of those problems are fixed. But as I said earlier, as an active opposition, we clearly have to take notes. We have to find a way to fill the gaps. You know, if we are going to, get people to buy into our vision and buy into our, our way of thinking, we surely have to be in a position to sell them something that is better than what we're getting now. So, with that said, we are literally out of time. So, with the borrowed time that we're on now, I am going to allow each of you a couple minutes to do a wrap. And I want, when you wrap up, you kind of speak to the electorate and say to them what it is they can expect from a People's Action Movement government. Clearly, people were disappointed. People were expecting better. They have been let down big time, bigly, and so we must find a way. and without losing people, because the funny thing about politics is that when people are so disappointed sometimes, they get disillusioned and they withdraw. And clearly, we as an opposition party have to find a way now to fill that gap and to excite people again. We have a track record. You know, history shows that PAM has a solid track record. We now have to say that we have the ability to build on that and to make it better. The foundation is there. We now need to put a few more stories on what is there and go vertically. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to get there? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll give the political leader the last word on that.
I'd like to say thank you very much. It's been a great opportunity for us to speak to you about the challenges of the country at this point in time. Although we're in opposition, we're very cognizant of the challenges that many of our people are facing today. Politics is not an easy game. It's a serious game. It's a serious matter. And I can tell you that the People's Action Movement will have a plan under the leadership of our political leader, Ms. Shani Gray, that is going to bolster economic development, job creation, and healthcare services. That plan will be eventually released in the coming months, in the latter half of the year, as it's very important. We see it's very important to meet you, the people, where you're at. Try to find out a little bit more about what your concerns are. What are your aspirations? And a lot of the ideas do not necessarily come from Parliament. They come from you, the people. And in order to get those sorts of ideas from you, the people, we need to come and meet you where you're at, so that you can be all encompassing, all participating in our revolution plan. And thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to communicating with you on the road in every single village in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
Thank you again, Madam Piaro, for allowing us the opportunity to be here. It is always a pleasure to be able to have that opportunity to speak to the people. We have recognized some of the problems. We have to look at improving our healthcare system, our education. We need to make sure that our infrastructure is developed and is adaptable to changing circumstances. We have to make sure that we promote our youth and our women. The People's Action Movement will continue to act with honesty and integrity. This is not about making promises just to get a vote. We are basically dealing with the lives of the people of this great nation. And we can't have people's lives in our hands and play with it. We will be coming to you to hear your concerns, and we will continue to adapt our vision if necessary, because we can't just have it in a document and say, this is what PAM wants. But what PAM wants may not necessarily be what the people need. So we have to adapt and change. As I said before, it's a breathing and living commitment. We are going to be and we'll continue to be people-centered and people-focused, because at the end of the day, whatever we do, whether it is in healthcare, education, whatever we do has an impact on people's lives. And PAM is not about playing with people's lives. And so our commitment to you is that our vision is one that will be inclusive, that will be innovative, that will be exciting, and that will be for the people. And so whatever we lay out to you in the coming months, we are not just about getting you excited, we are about improving your quality of life, and that is what we intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, political leader. I have to thank both you and the chairman for sharing this hour here on Perspectives this evening. I believe that a lot of what you have said have caught the attention of, over the coming weeks and months, will catch the attention of the electorate. We're in a space now where the electorate is demanding more. People are no longer going to be fooled by a fancy manifesto, and when people get into government cannot deliver. So the standards and the expectations are going to be exacting. And I promise you that as a political party, we have to find a way to deliver and to meet those expectations of the electorate. We are now seeing a situation where the children of earlier generations who voted in a particular way are not necessarily going to vote that way anymore. So there's clearly, something that I observed when I was in the private sector many years ago, that the young people, I guess the Gen Zs and whatever, whatever will come after that, they really don't owe anybody any loyalty.
Yes.
They are going to mark you on a different scale based on performance. And so there's a lot to expect of a political party. Clearly, we have the experience. Clearly, we have the know-how because the platform has been built already. The building blocks have been built already by this party. So I think where that is concerned, we need to tell our stories more and convince people and convict them that we can do what we say we would do. And I think over the coming weeks and months, a lot more of that will be shared and will be demonstrated in some of the activities. Let me just share with you some of the activities that we have planned for February. As many of you are aware, we are celebrating our 60th anniversary. It is going to be a year-long celebration. And so for the month of February, we just want to give you a quick heads up of some of the activities that we want to see you come out in your numbers to support. And let me at this juncture also thank the people, whether you are members and friends of our party or just merely supporters, for the strong show of support at the gala and likewise at our church service last Sunday. So we are expecting you to come on board and cheer us on and support us for the balance of this year as we build up to 2027, if not sooner. So on February 7th, is that next Friday?
Yes.
Next Friday, the party is organizing a prayer for the nation. Clearly, this has been spurred by the number of traffic accidents and other, other disasters and sad occasions that we've seen in the Federation in recent times. So we want to invite you to this prayer for the nation on Bank Street next Friday at 4:30. Then on the 8th, on Saturday, there's a pop-up meeting in Sandy Point at 42nd Street. Now, I was thinking 42nd Street is in New York, but apparently Sandy Point has its own 42nd Street. So there's a pop-up meeting on February the 8th in Sandy Point. On February the 14th, of course, everybody knows that that day signifies love. So we have what is called We Love You, the bus fare initiative. Recall that a few months ago, when the bus fare increased, we took it upon ourselves to pay the bus fares of several people on all the bus lines in St. Kitts who were traveling home that day. We're coming back again on February the 14th to do something similar, so stay tuned for that. On February the 15th, there's an East Bastia Community Day of Love. I guess one day after February 14th, the East Bastia Constituency number 1 is going to show some more love in a different form. Obviously, more details will come from the constituency over time on this particular initiative. And then February 20th would be Perspectives. That being the third Thursday in the month is a time when the political leader would come back. We remind you that every third Thursday in the month, she has the chair to share her views and her ideas in her leadership role as political leader. And then on February 23rd, the final activity in February is the C5 netball and basketball affair. Now, this is an event that is going to be organized by the members of constituency number 5, and I'm sure that over time they will also share details to this particular event. So we want to see you at one, if not all of these events, because we are on the move. We are putting the action back into this movement. We're not a party, we are a movement. And so we're going to be moving. We're going to be moving through every city, every nook and cranny, every village, every community, every alleyway, every byway in St. Kitts over the coming weeks, months, and years as a build-up to election. We hope you will join us. We look forward to your support in cash, kind, and otherwise. Thank you so much for viewing this edition of Perspectives. We hope to see you again soon on another edition. Until then, God bless, goodbye, take care.
We love to serve our country that God has blessed so well. In peace and love and happiness, we will forever dwell. We ask for God's protection and guidance on our way. The People's Action Movement will strive from day to day. The People's Action